Welcome back to Prime Your Life. And I know that you have a podcast idea out there that you've sat on for ages. Well, today I've got Mike Roberts with us, and all he does is podcasting. And my objective today is to talk to Mike to allow you to free yourself from the shackles of thinking about podcasts and actually getting one recorded, live, and out there to the world. Because I know you've got a message that is worth spreading. Mike Roberts, welcome to the show today.
Oh, Chris, thank you so much. It's brilliant to be here, and thank you for inviting me on. Absolutely thrilled.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. And I've already been on your channel and we've had a great discussion, which is why I brought you through to our channel today. But rather than me big you up, Mike, if you were to meet a stranger in your local city today and they said, "So, Mike, what is it you do?" How would you respond to that question, Mike?
Do you know what? I think I would say something along the lines of, I help good people who are brilliant at what they do get found, get heard, and get trusted.
Love that. Nice. Already you're seeing that we have got simplicity, conciseness, and this is why I think Mike's going to drop a load of gold today. And towards the end, we're also going to talk about a missing link in your revenue, perhaps, which is the private podcast. More of that later. All right, Mike, on the back foot then, give us some feedback on what makes you good at what you do, Mike.
So, very brief history of myself. I've spent 20 years in sales and marketing. Set my own business up 2.5 years ago and realized that audio was such a huge, important factor when it comes to people buying from you, I suppose. There's nothing out there that's easier to do than just hitting record on your phone, recording something, and getting it out to the world in this globalization that we're living in right now. Podcasting is global. It's easy to do. And in my opinion, you can do so much with it, have fun with it, and make money as well. It's just brilliant.
Talk about the mechanism of a podcast then. When it gets into my ears and then into my brain, why is that more effective than perhaps an email or a LinkedIn message or other methodologies of grabbing the attention of the people that you want to serve?
Good question. So first of all, what I would say is, what is it about a voice that creates a picture? And if your brain has to do some of the work, then you're onto something brilliant because you are relying on that to help enhance it. So emails, great, easily deleted, black text on a white background, no rehumanization there whatsoever. If we go to the other end of the spectrum, video, slightly harder to do. People can be quite uncomfortable when they're sat in front of a camera lens. So if we kind of meet in the middle and we focus on voice and audio, again, easy to do. If somebody is listening to your voice, you're building trust. They're getting to know you. And if you ever happen to meet them at a networking opportunity or a networking event in the future, they're going to feel like they already know you. It's a really strange feeling, but a great one to be involved in. So it's building the trust, creating the impact. And when somebody's listening to you or they're willing to give you half an hour of their time while they're walking the dog or driving to work or whatever it is that they're doing, they've already started working with you before they've even realized. It's just so good.
And what was your backstory, Mike? Why did you decide to do this? Give us a little sort of précis of what you were doing before you got into the podcasting skill set.
Yeah, well, for 20 years, I was in sales. So I was, knocking on doors, prospecting, selling software. Remember the old document signing solutions and things like that? That was my job for many, many years. And I suppose the way that I've been brought up and the way that I've been trained in sales has always been in a very old-fashioned way. It's pick up the phone, get past the decision maker, get past the gatekeeper, speak to the decision maker. And I was doing this for so many years, right up until 2022. And during the last 7 or 8 years of my sales career, I thought there's got to be a better way of doing this. There's got to be such an easier way to build trust with people if you're selling something. There's got to be more than to just picking up the phone and making cold calls and doing it the old-fashioned way. And I started doing sales in a very, very different way. I started using video messaging as a way to prospect. I used to use video messaging as a way to deliver proposals. And, then WhatsApp came along and people were using voice messages. And I just realized that in the world of sales, whether you're a business owner or whether you are a sales representative for a larger organization, we now have technology with us everywhere that we go, whether we're sat at our desk or out and about. We've got technology to make sales so much easier than it had been for our predecessors over the generations. So I started getting into editing. I started working with social content, all whilst being a sales rep for a larger organization. So I built up all these skill sets and realized to myself, hang on a minute, there's an opportunity for me here to help people understand the technology that's out there, help people understand how to grow their small business, and whilst at the same time use my editing skills to create content for people, edit podcasts, give them coaching and training. And that was the area that I just wanted to dive into. I thought, I love the power of audio. It's something I've been using for many, many years. I can edit. I can show people how to use the world of podcasting to grow their business and their personal brand. And do you know what? I think we're 150 podcast shows in now in terms of the number of shows that I've been working on for people. And it's just been a majorly brilliant success. So I'm all about flying the flag for the world of audio. And I think podcasts is brilliant. And I'm really excited because I know later we're going to get into the world of private podcasts, which very few people have heard about, but it's going to be so unique for nearly every single business owner listening to this today.
Absolutely. I assure those with us so far that we will touch on private podcasting. But let's talk about some of the monoliths of the podcasting world, the Stephen Bartletts, the Mel Robbins, the Chris Williamsons. How much does that cause fear for people to think that they have to be this huge global brand with this wonderful production studio and all these crew and these digital assets being hyper optimized to be triggering on the eye for people? What are your advice words to the person that is waiting because they just think that they have to chase perfection?
Oh, right. Okay. So many different answers for this one, but I'm just going to go really, really simple here on my answer for this. So you can go from one end of the spectrum to the other when it comes to podcasting. If we're talking about Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett and people like that, that's all about going viral, getting millions of views, having a 20 strong team of people around you, 3 different cinema cameras, a full editing suite. That's what most people are thinking about. My advice, do not go down that route, especially as a small business owner. A real life example for me is, rather than thinking about clicks and going viral and using video, go simple. Think of your target audience. Think of the problems that they're facing. Think of what they would expect if they found you on Spotify or Apple or Amazon or YouTube Music. And just remember that if you get just 10 listens in a month of your podcast, that's 10 opportunities that you did not have the month before. And I said I'd give you a real life example. So I'm working with a lovely lady at the moment. She's called Sarah Dodd, and she calls herself the tree lawyer. So she is a lawyer for trees. Okay. And we created a podcast for her called Trees in a Pod. And okay, she doesn't go viral. She doesn't get the thousands of views, but she does get people listening because her target audience are finding her because they might have a particular problem or looking for someone like Sarah. And there ain't many Sarah Dodds in this world who are tree lawyers. And one listener found her, became one of her biggest clients, and it just speaks for itself. So it was a brilliant thing to do. And it just so happens that the right person found her, and anybody can think like that. Think small. And then if you want to grow it to video, high production, video editing, great. But start from where's comfortable for you and just think, if you could get 10 people listening to your episode and 10 possible prospects, is it worth just getting your phone out and recording a 10-minute episode? I'm sure most people would think yes.
I completely agree with you. It for me, it resonates with always. It starts with audience first and then content from that. And equally, if you don't want to do the whole production value of being on film or camera, you just want to do audio, then it sounds like that is a logical route. So what's the basic setup then? If somebody's thinking, okay, I want to be the how to create a lovely smooth finish on your sailing boat niche podcaster, pick that out of nowhere. I don't know where that came from. What's the first step then, Mike, in terms of equipment, microphones? Does it have to be lots and lots, or can it just, well, I'll not steal the answer. What's the first step on equipment, Mike?
Yeah. Okay. So we'll start with equipment. Most people right now who are listening to this are thinking microphones. Okay. Got to buy myself a big £500 posh microphone off Amazon or whatever it is. No, not at all. If you have a fancy microphone, brilliant. If you don't, then on your phone, on everybody's phone, we have something called the Voice Memos app, which does a brilliant job at recording your voice, crystal clear, great BPM, everything that you need to record a great audio clip.
Sorry,
Okay?
what's a VPM? Sorry.
Like you know, like the bits per minute and
Okay. Yep.
and you've got all of the great tuning vocals all embedded inside that app. There's no need to do anything else. So that works beautifully. Now, once you've recorded your episode and it's on your phone, then most people would, for example, airdrop it to themselves, to their laptop, and they can edit it if they know how to edit. You may need to use an editor if you want some music stitched in at the beginning and end, but editors are not expensive. They're easy to find. And with the right bit of motivation, it's quite easy to learn how to do it yourself using something like GarageBand on your Mac or Audacity, which is a free piece of software that can be downloaded onto PC and Macs. So we've recorded without having to buy an expensive microphone. We may have edited it using GarageBand or Audacity. And before you know it, we've got ourselves a great little episode, maybe a little bit of music. If we've really gone deep into it, we've got rid of the ums and ahs and the awkward silences, but we've got ourselves an episode. Episode 1, beautiful, done. Getting it out to the world, again, it's not as complicated as most people think. You know, getting onto Apple, Spotify, Amazon, you don't have to jump through all sorts of hoops to do that. You use a hosting platform and they do all the hard work for you. So, for example, there's Buzzsprout, there's Libsyn, there's Spotify for podcasters, which is free to use. And all of these applications just require you to create an account, set up your podcast name, upload that audio that you've recorded, and then you just simply say, great, send it to the world, publish it straight away or schedule it, and there you have it. It's a lot more simple than I think a lot of people realize. I think over the years and what it was like in the old days is you had to set up an account with iTunes, you had to get approved, you had to do the same with Spotify. All of that's gone now. Anybody can record, upload, and have a podcast within an hour or so. It is so easy.
So we've learned about building brand and connecting with people and creating a community. Can you also talk about a phrase that I've heard, which is evergreen, in terms of something that is evergreen versus perhaps an email newsletter or a LinkedIn post? What does evergreen mean and why is that important, Mike?
So in my world, what evergreen means is once you've created a podcast episode, you might not realize this, but you have some content there, which you can use again and again in your business world. So let's just say I've recorded a podcast episode and I've spoken with a law firm owner, and I've done a live coaching call with this law firm owner on setting their podcast up for the first time. So I've recorded a conversation and we've gone through the name, getting found on Spotify and Apple, the right keywords to use, what we're going to put into the episode, how we're going to make it fun, listenable, how we're going to make it, enjoyable. Now that is a podcast episode which is going to be out there forever until I delete it. That's one way of saying evergreen. But in my eyes, we have also now got a piece of content that we can share in social media, our marketing. We can even send that to future prospects that we might be speaking to. So if I have another law firm owner over here that I'd be really interested in speaking to or working with, well, that episode that I've just recorded with this law firm owner, that's a really great piece of content that I can send to my new prospect and say, I'd love to have a chat with you. I'd love to, have the possibility of working with you. By the way, this 7.5-minute episode that I recorded last week may be of interest. I'd love to do the same thing with yourself.
Well, for me, podcasting is always dealing with the two first parts of the A in my 5-way framework, which is attention and awareness. And often, even though you don't know, a prospect is actually on your channel, they've started to listen to your first Tree Lawyer podcast, and then they'll go down through your previous episodes. And without you even knowing, they are building awareness of you and your brand, so that when you perhaps meet them, as you've already said at that networking meeting, they know so much more about you than you could even imagine, due to the fact that they are going through your past episodes and history. Mike, tell us about how you stay a podcaster that survives the test of time, because we often hear that just by having 5-6 episodes, you're already in the top few percent of podcasts globally. If you're working with a client, how do you make sure that it's not just a once and done, but it's a future community that is there to be built on?
Well, there are lots of different ways of doing this. Now, if anybody's listening to this episode thinking, I haven't got the energy to be doing an episode every week or every single month, that's fine. There are no rights and wrong ways about doing this. And one of the things that can fall foul with a lot of people is trying to keep up with their consistency. And sometimes people can overdo it and burn themselves out. So right from the start, what I would be saying to a client is, okay, what is the structure of our episodes going to be? So let's just say it's a half-hour conversation with a guest. And some people might be thinking, I want to do one every single week. And that might not be feasible. It might be great in the short term, but in the long run, they may kind of burn out and just get too tired with it. So looking at this from day one is a really good project to do. So doing one of those every month is probably something that most people could deal with. But also there's no harm in having a think about what else can we put into that month, just so that we keep at the top of our lists when people are listening to us. So yes, have a half-an-hour episode every month, but maybe there's a nice little 5-minute solo episode that you can think of that you can just record on your phone. That's a nice little golden nugget of information for your listeners. What that means is we have now 2 episodes every month without getting burnt out. We've got our flagship episode on the second Friday of every month, for example. And then we have our 5-minute golden nugget piece of information, which happens on the last Saturday of every month. So it's a really good idea to look at this right from the beginning and see how we can structure it out so that we don't end up burning ourselves out with something like this.
I really like the message there that you're talking about. It's sometimes not the quantity, it's the quality. For me, I do like to have a consistent rhythm. So the fact that I want to try to create at least 2 per month makes me start to look for content, find guests, and it puts me into a rhythm. But that's just what works for me. I know that other people have different mantras around that. Where are you on short form, long form in terms of what you're seeing as part of the preferences in audiences at the moment?
Do you mean in terms of the length of the episodes?
Yes. Yeah.
So personally, I have my own take on it. I think the sweet spot for me is I really like episodes, especially for me when I'm listening to them, to be around between 30 and 40 minutes in length. I think if you can pick the ideal scenario of what your audience is doing when they're listening to a podcast, that could be walking the dog, driving to work, sat in the airport, whatever it might be. Usually those things can take around 30 to 40 minutes on average. And there's no harm, especially if you're doing a really great episode, in turning it into a 2-parter. Because sometimes when I'm working with clients, they might send me an episode that's an hour and a half long. And in those instances, we would just turn it into a 2-part episode. And that not only increases the number of downloads that you get as a podcaster, but it also means that people are almost looking forward to the next episode, and it's giving you another chance for them to remember you by. And that's what I love about short form, but not getting too worked up about it when it's long form, because we can do what we want with editing and making it really nice and bite-sized for any listener.
Well, I'm having a look at the clock now and counting down, thinking I need to hit the sweet spot here of somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes. What are your views on advertising? There's a particular podcast that I used to like, and recently he's just started to sell his at me a lot. And it's actually making me really feel like he's using me for his own means, because he just wants to sell me his dub it again. What are your views on turning content into a blatant sales push for the benefit of revenue attraction as opposed to client servitude?
Yeah, I reckon there's a few ways of looking at this. So, number one, if you're a podcaster and you're a small business owner and you have the option of being able to be sponsored, which means that the costs of running your podcast, the hosting, maybe the editing, those costs are covered because the sponsor has kindly offered to sponsor the show, then that's great. And there are different ways that you can do it without being too pushy to your listener. So as an editor, one of the things that I will do is, if there is an intro and outro sequence on a podcast, let's just mention the sponsor in the intro and the outro and just drop it in there. It takes seconds to do, but not only does it get a mention on your podcast without it sounding too overboard, but they get a mention in the show notes, they get a clickable link in the show notes, and if you're doing email marketing, just have a little paragraph about them in your email as well. And it's win-win for the sponsor and your costs are covered. In the world of advertising, again, if you want to, and this is what some of my clients do, they do record a little advert, and they do it because they're working with an organization that they know, like, and trust. It's not just a stranger to them. We'll just record that and we'll just stitch it in at the halfway time of the episode, no longer than 40 seconds, but it's there, it's nice, and it also splits up the episode into two as well, which kind of has a little mid-sized break. But you're absolutely right. One of the things that I would always do is say, how can we make this as minimal as possible that does really well for the sponsor or the advertiser without it really annoying the listener?
Well, thank goodness for that. I'll drop a private message to that particular podcaster and say, you are now beginning to really annoy me with your blatant plugging of your workshop seminar, fill in the gap. What about AI? Obviously, we can't talk about that at the moment without everybody having thought on it. Tell us how AI can assist the person that is thinking about podcast ideation as opposed to how it can replace them.
Yeah, so AI in the world of podcasting. So there's something out there at the moment which is getting a lot of publicity, and it's something that I really detest, and I think it's just absolute garbage. And that is using AI to record your podcast for you. So in other words, you throw a load of stuff into, I don't know, AI, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever it might be. It churns out a script, and then you can use another AI tool and it will speak it for you. And hey presto, you have a podcast episode. I don't think that builds trust. I don't think it really gives me an idea of who I'm listening to or the business that I might be, investing in or whatever, or working with. And I just think it's a bit of a lazy way of doing it. And I just don't think it goes down well. And we're still in the early stages of this. And I've heard a few so far. And I'm just really interested to see how that goes. But in my opinion, not great. And I'd love to hear what other people think about this if they get in touch.
Well, please drop your thoughts into the comments. I am 100% with you. I do believe that the first part of client attraction is to create that trust. And when you're using an outsourced medium to try to replicate who you are, and they meet you and say, hey, we thought it was fantastic what your insights were about colonization of the world, by the way. And you go, yeah, well, that wasn't really me. It was my podcast avatar. What did you think? I think you've just created a huge disconnect between you and your potential audience. So applaud you on that one, Mike, but please drop us your thoughts in the comments. Okay, so we're not going to use it to replicate or replace us. But how could you use it, if you were able to help you with ideation or creativity if you're stuck in a black hole of, I don't know what to post about next?
Yeah, well, I think things like ChatGPT and Claude and all these AI tools are great for creating ideas and working from something that isn't just a blank piece of paper. So quite often, I would be thinking to myself, okay, I've got an idea for a podcast and I know my subject on this. But what I might need is just some great ideas that I might not have thought about, such as maybe, are there any other topics that my listeners could possibly benefit from that I've not thought about? And honestly, it can give you a really great list of saying, well, what about this, or this? And you're just thinking, I would have never thought about that point. I'm going to absolutely go down that route on this episode. In fact, it's going to turn it into 100% better than I thought it was going to be. Or you can start right from the beginning and say, look, this is who I am. This is my business. These are the clients that I work with and serve. I'm thinking about doing a podcast, but at the moment I'm short on ideas on what I could talk about. Should I be talking to guests? Should this be a solo episodes? What advice can you give me? An AI can certainly help you turn those thoughts and ideas into actionable things that you can work with. And it's just, as long as it gives you that little light bulb moment of, I never thought about that one. That's what it's there for. And then you're just excited to pick up that phone or grab that mic and get going.
You mentioned a lot of simple steps here as to how somebody could do their voice note recording, upload it, and then host it on something like Buzzsprout. But if I'm working with a client, I'll say, well, is that most effective use of your time as a business owner or a sales leader? So, Mike, where do you drop into that actual assisting them with making their podcast come to life as opposed to them taking all the steps themselves?
Yeah, well, in my business, I'm either a done-for-you service or we'll just pick the bits that they need a helping hand with. So whether it's just getting their first idea off the ground and giving them an idea of how, when, and where to publish, that could be one instance. And there are some business owners that I work with that don't even want to be involved with any tech. So I will literally provide them with the software so that they can record their episode. I'll be there virtually to make sure that it's recorded and successful in the background. And after that, they don't need to do anything else. I'll do all the heavy lifting. So editing it, publishing it, writing the show notes, the title, making sure that it's, SEO ready. So search engine optimization. You've got to sometimes think about titles, for example. So if I was thinking of a podcast for me back in the day, the Making Digital Real podcast is great. That's great for me. But the problem is nobody's on Spotify or Apple searching for those words, making digital real. What people might be searching for is podcast strategies or podcasting tips or things like that. And that's why I named my show, the Podcasting Strategy Show, because that's what people are looking for. And then in the show notes themselves, you can have all sorts of keywords that people are looking for. So it's also just been a little bit smart about how you're going to get found, what people are actually searching for, and not just necessarily going with a title idea because it's right for you. It needs to be right for your audience as well. And what we'll also do is we'll look at really cool third-party applications that you can use to enhance your podcasting journey. So I'll give you an example. There's a free tool out there called speakpipe.com. So speakpipe.com. What that is, it's a free tool. You set up an account in seconds, and it gives you a link that you can send to anybody to send you a voice message. And what we use that for in the world of my clients is we will send a SpeakPipe link to somebody. So let's just say we were working together, Chris, right? And I was editing one of your upcoming episodes. You could send your SpeakPipe link to one of your clients that you've worked with, and they can send you a voice message back. So let's just say it's a great message saying, worked with Chris, went to one of his events in Wetherby or wherever, learned so much about, what you offer. And I highly recommend Chris. He's a brilliant guy. Well, you've now got a voice recording from your client that's just been delivered to you on an email because you sent them that SpeakPipe link. We can now stitch that into future episodes. So now not only is your audience listening to you, but they're hearing from your clients as well. And there was no WhatsApp involved, all very professional, using something called SpeakPipe. And we look at all these different little tools that some people may have never heard of, and they're just so thankful that they're doing this from day one, rather than going halfway through their journey up to episode 50 and then just discovering all these tools. So that's kind of like the adventures that we would go on together.
Well, it seems to me as if I was thinking about a book. You help them create this fantastic book and then put it in a nice cover, and then rather than sitting in the back shelves of the library, you kind of put this big pointy arrow at it to say, "Here's a great book. Find it, open it, and then fill your boots." Well, we're going to get into the private podcasting subject in just a sec, but obviously I wouldn't be a proper host without talking about Mike's channel. So yeah, go to see makingdigitalreal.co.uk, and Mike gives away an awful lot of content. And equally, if you want to fill your boots with your own stuff, he has the private podcast advantage, which is a self-guided tutorial to enable you to pick up some of his insights. But why not just connect with Mike on LinkedIn and take the first step? Mike, come on then, private podcasting. It was a little token that you offered to me when we had our first chat, and I was, that's interesting. Tell us more about the world of private podcasting.
Okay, right. So a private podcast can be listened to just like a normal one, okay? So it can be listened to on Spotify, Apple, all the major apps. There's no difference there. But because it's a private podcast, it means it's hidden from the world. You can't just find it. So there are going to be people listening to this thinking, well, why on earth would I hide my podcast from the world? And my answer to that is, there are going to be listeners here who have something called a lead magnet on their website. So a lead magnet is something that you offer for free in exchange for their name and email address. On most websites, it's usually a fact sheet or a PDF or a free ebook or something like that. That's what lead magnets have been for the last 15, 20 years. Now, imagine being able to take your lead magnet, your PDF, and being able to deliver it with voice. So, for example, if I was to land on, if someone was to go to my website, they will see that I have a lead magnet called the Private Podcast Advantage. And it's a three episodes delivered to your podcast app of choice that takes you on a very simple 15-minute journey of the whens, the whys, the hows of creating a private podcast. So that's my lead magnet. I could quite easily have said, download my PDF on how to create a podcast. But I don't want to do that. I want to do something different. I want to do something that nobody else is really doing yet, and I want to be the first in my industry to think about it. So a private podcast is usually a set of 3, 5, maybe 10 audios. Takes the listener on a journey from A to Z, and they're being able to listen to you. They can listen to your clients by stitching in some of those SpeakPipe messages I spoke about earlier. But by the time they've got to the end of those episodes, they've already started working with Mike. They trust him. They understand what he's all about. They've got a little bit of an insight into this VIP experience of who Mike is. And hopefully by the end of it, they'll want to pick up the phone or send that email to Mike and say, love what you've done so far. How can we make a podcast or a private podcast for me? So a lead magnet is one way of doing a private one. The other way is, some people listening to this might be thinking of creating a course, something that they can sell and continuously make money on. And traditionally, courses have been video courses. But why not have an audio course? Why must somebody be sat in front of a screen? You know, everybody's got screen fatigue now, but why must they have to log into something and stare at a screen to learn from what you can offer them? Can you deliver this via audio? And if the answer is yes, have a private podcast as an online course. Put a price tag on it if you want. You know, charge £5.99 to get access to this wonderful piece of audio content that you've created. I'm also thinking that there could be an advantage in huge, large corporations. Rather than just sending an email newsletter out to all of its internal employees, have a wonderful internal private podcast, because you can add listeners and remove listeners at any point. When they receive the link from you to access the private podcast and it opens up in Apple, you can set it so that that link is destroyed after the first time it's clicked. It can't be shared with anyone else. And I know I've gone through so much there in such a short amount of time, but I think my main message here is you've got podcasts which are public to the world, great for organic reach and people finding you. But you've also got the world of private podcasts, which means that you can start collecting names and email addresses and using it as a lead magnet or for something more of a VIP experience. And there's so many wonderful ways that you can use this. And there's no harm in having two. Have your free private podcast over here. And now that the call to action at the end of each episode is, if you've enjoyed this episode, why not come along and sign up for free to our VIP private episode, where we throw in a bonus episode for you every single month? Because now you know who your listeners are. They've listened, they're hooked, they've heard your call to action, and now they're jumping onto this web landing page that you may have created, and they're giving you their details for these bonus episodes so you can nurture those relationships. So it's all about rehumanization. It's all about gaining trust, and people are learning, buying from and trusting you, not just a logo and a brand name that you're trying to heavily promote on LinkedIn.
So clever. I've got many different thoughts there in terms of scarcity sells, also authority, and people feel as though they want to pay when they've got something that's exclusive. Or even from a learning diversity perspective, some people can't read or they can't deal with words on a page. And I've got a daily journal that is in a book. I'm thinking, well, I could just send out people each morning their affirmations, their 2 journal questions, and then leave them to ideate on their own thoughts in their own way. But naturally, people think pen, ink, book, paper. But actually, there's a huge subset of people that hate that type of learning or progression. And from a private podcasting perspective, is there more technicalities there in terms of how to host that, how to get people to subscribe and pay for it?
It's actually easier than you think. So a lot of these hosting platforms that I mentioned earlier, one of them in particular is one called Hello Audio, which is one that I really highly recommend. For the price of a couple of coffees a month, they will give you a private podcast feed and a public podcast feed, and they'll give you both for a small monthly cost. So it's not difficult at all. The only tricky part, I suppose, and this is where I sometimes come in to help my clients, is just showing them things like how to set up a nice landing page, where the link sits, and how we can set up a nice form on their website to say, if you are interested in listening to this bonus content, this is where you would pop in your details. And then we would just automate an email saying, hi, Dave, thanks for getting in touch. As requested, here is the link for your private to access the podcast. So yeah, there's a little bit of work in the early stages, but once it's done, it's a done for you service and you'll never have to worry about it again.
Yeah. Well, the clue's in what you've already said. You've done hundreds of these, so you've already got the battle scars and the roadblocks overcome by going through the motions yourself. So why not ask for some help before you get stuck in the weeds? Mike, is there something that we've not covered before I asked you to give us your 3 sound bites that we finish every show with?
I don't think so. I think my message today really is if you're an active LinkedIn user and you're on there a lot and you're pushing out content and, you've gone as far as you can go in terms of, I really want to do more marketing, but I just don't know what else I can offer. I've got a great website. I've got this, I've got that. then maybe have a think about using the power of audio to enhance your personal branding even more, because there are so many people out there who have maybe thought about it or who have been sat on the fence, but they just want to have it perfect, but they've never got around to that perfect part. I would say I'd much rather you just got your phone out and did it now, and then perfect it as time goes on, rather than wasting another 6 months, without anything being out there. Just get it done, because you can always go back and you can actually update episodes and replace the audio content if you want to. There's been so many occasions where I've gone back to the drawing board and deleted my back catalogue of episodes and started again. It's honestly, you can do anything in this world of digital, so it's so much fun as well.
Yeah, and to mirror that, nobody started with perfection. If you go to my channel, your channel, or even Stephen Bartlett's channel, go all the way back to his first recordings at 2:00 in the morning, and you'll see how raw and vulnerable and, to be honest, amateurish it was. But it served him, and look at the stratospheric rise to fame he has had now. Maybe that's not what you're looking for, but remember, we all started somewhere, and when we started, it probably wasn't quite perfect, but at least they started. Remember,
Absolutely.
It's making digital real is the way you've got to go to find Mike, and as I said, on his LinkedIn profile, you'll find many routes from that. So, Mike, I am all about living not for just today, but also for the future. What would be your 3 takeaways that you're going to challenge people with today to help them lead a long, healthy, active life, Mike?
Yeah, so I had to think about this before, and my 3 is, so the first one is, and this is huge for me, stay curious. Because the day you think you've got everything figured out is, in my opinion, the day you stop growing. So stay curious. Number 2, protect your energy. I think who you spend your time with matters a lot. I've definitely been thinking about that for a long time. And also keep moving. Like, your body was designed to move, your mind was designed to learn, and of course your business was designed to evolve. So never stay still in the same area, just keep going.
What a great 3-way trifecta there. Stay curious, protect your energy, and also keep moving. And I particularly like the protect your energy aspect, because it's so easy to get triggered, clickbaited by bad energy. I'm only looking at the news today based on the PM resigning and the implications of that. And it could send me into all kinds of rabbit holes that would not be great for my own energy and mindset today. Mike Roberts, making digital real. I love what you've done on the channel. I really appreciate your insights today. If you're on the edge of podcasting, as Mike's urged you to do, what's the worst that can happen? Every journey starts with a small step. Why not have a go? And if you fail, then go and find Mike, and he'll pick you up and take you through the next steps.
Thank you, Chris. And well done on everything you've done with Speak and Serve as well. Really, really appreciate what you've done for me and bringing me on the show.
Well, thank you so much.